There are some hidden truths in the gospel that for a while they're a little hard to see. But once you spend more time with Jesus and the stories surrounding him, they become really kind of obvious. And one of those is, there's a guarantee about when Jesus, the Spirit, God, will show up. Do you know what that promise is? We'll talk about it today on Faith for Times Like These. It's Pastor Dan. Good day, everybody. One of the places that Jesus has promised to always show up, sometimes it's in the form of the Spirit, sometimes it might be the Creator, and sometimes it might be Jesus himself, is in our midst, in that little distance, but the profound distance between two people. And when it shows up the most in my life is when two people have decided to take on the posture of helping and receiving. Right in the middle of that exchange, Jesus always shows up. And then this amazing thing happens. If you're the one who thinks you're simply receiving, it's really easy sometimes to say no thank you to the help. And you might feel something that gets in the way at that moment. If you're the one that's giving, sometimes you enter into that thinking that you're fundamentally different than the person that's receiving. But this magical thing happens, that once you start giving, then all of a sudden you also start receiving. And once you start receiving, you're giving. How many times when you look back on a situation where you thought that you were giving help, showing up, you walk away realizing you gained much more than you gave? Similarly, the person who is receiving help, all of a sudden you realize the person that is coming to you also needs your presence. And that somewhere in the magic of all of this, the giving and the receiving gets all blurred together, and it happens both directions at the same time. For those of you who've stepped up and helped with Holy Trinity in the midst and the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, my guess is you've experienced this. You start off with this beautiful motivation to go help people, and then in hindsight you realize your life has changed. That in the face of these strangers and neighbors, you've seen the face of God. That when you come home and share the stories with your children or your spouse or your partner, you realize something magical has happened. Jesus has shown up and God has done God's transforming work right in the midst of you. And there's the secret. That if you want transformation, it will always happen in that distance between you and your neighbor. And all too often, we just stand apart from our neighbor with our arms crossed and our hearts shut and our minds closed. But if we were to open our minds and open our arms and open our hearts, it creates the space for God to do the transforming work we talk so much about. If you feel stuck in your life, if you're stuck in your faith, go give yourself away, because then you'll create the opportunity for God to do God's work in the midst of you and your neighbor. It is the great secret of the gospel. It's the great joy of everyday life. And it's a secret that never fails to surprise and bless and make our lives richer. In faith, for times like these, let us remember that it's in the midst of our relationships with our neighbors that God most consistently shows up, most consistently blesses us, most consistently changes us into the people that we were made to be. Have a wonderful day in the giving and the receiving, folks. You're certain to meet Jesus there.